Victoria Sterling's hand connected with 6-year-old Emma's face so hard, the child's head snapped sideways. "How many times do I have to tell you, stupid girl, the table gets set before breakfast, not after?" Emma stumbled backward, her small body slamming against the cold counter. Blood trickled from her split lip as she clutched her throbbing cheek. 2-year-old Noah sat frozen on the floor, watching his sister crumble, too terrified to make a sound. Victoria grabbed Emma's thin arm and squeezed until the child cried out, "Stop crying. Your pathetic tears don't work on me." What Victoria didn't know was that outside, hidden among the rose bushes, a man in worn gardening clothes was recording every moment on his phone. A man who happened to be her billionaire husband. A man who had disguised himself as a humble gardener to discover the horrifying truth about what happened to his children when he wasn't home. And what he discovered would destroy everything. Before we continue, please subscribe to our channel, like this video, and tell us in the comments which city you're watching from. Now let's discover how this incredible story of betrayal, courage, and justice unfolds. Victoria released Emma's arm, leaving angry red welts on the pale skin. "Clean yourself up. You're disgusting." Emma nodded frantically, blood still dripping from her lip. "Yes, Mrs. Thornton." "And stop bleeding on my floor." The 6-year-old pressed her sleeve against her mouth and stumbled toward the bathroom, her legs barely holding her weight. Victoria turned to Noah, who hadn't moved from his spot on the floor. "What are you staring at?" The 2-year-old's eyes widened with terror. "Get out of my sight, now!" Noah scrambled to his feet and ran after his sister, his small feet slapping against the tile. Victoria watched them go, then pulled out her phone and dialed. Her voice transformed instantly from ice to honey. "Hello, darling." "Yes, I just got the children ready for school. They're doing wonderfully, so much better behaved now." She laughed warm and melodic. "I told you they just needed structure. When are you coming home? Another 3 weeks?" "Of course, take your time. Everything here is perfect." She ended the call and poured herself a glass of champagne, completely unaware that her husband was standing 15 feet away, his hands shaking so violently he could barely hold his phone steady. Marcus Thornton had been watching for exactly 53 minutes. In that time, his world had shattered into a million pieces. He pressed stop on the recording and forced himself to breathe. The blood on Emma's lip, the terror in Noah's eyes, the casual cruelty in Victoria's voice. This wasn't discipline, this was torture, and he had delivered his children into the hands of their torturer. Marcus slipped the phone into his pocket and picked up the garden shears. His cover identity was Robert, a quiet gardener who kept his head down and his mouth shut. He had been playing this role for 6 days now, and every hour had revealed new horrors. But today was different. Today he had video evidence. Today Victoria had drawn blood. Today was the beginning of the end. 2 weeks earlier, Marcus had sat in his lawyer's office, unable to shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. David Chen studied his face across the desk. "You look like you haven't slept in days." "I haven't." "What's going on?" Marcus pulled out his phone and showed David a photograph. Emma, at her dance recital 6 months ago, beaming at the camera, her eyes full of joy. Then he swiped to a photo from last week. The same child, but the light in her eyes was gone. "Look at her, David. Really look." David frowned. "She looks tired. She looks broken." Marcus kids go through phases. Adjusting to a new stepmother takes time. "It's been 6 months. 6 months and my daughter flinches every time I raise my hand to wave at her. My son barely speaks anymore. He used to be learning new words every day. Now he just stares at the wall." David leaned back in his chair. "What exactly are you suggesting?" "Last week, Emma told me something I can't stop thinking about." Marcus's voice dropped. "She said, 'Daddy, when you're gone, the house becomes scary.'" "Scary how?" I asked her what she meant. She froze, like she had said something forbidden. Then she told me she was confused that she didn't remember saying it. David was quiet for a long moment. "But I saw her face," Marcus continued. "I saw the fear in her eyes. Real fear, David. The kind that comes from experience." You think Victoria is hurting them? I don't know, but I'm going to find out. Then ask her directly. Marcus shook his head. She'll deny it. She'll make me think I'm crazy. She'll call me paranoid, overprotective, still grieving Catherine, and then she'll be more careful. She'll hide it better. So what do you propose? Marcus stood and walked to the window. Our gardener quit last week. I'm going to disguise myself and apply for the position. David stared at him. You've completely lost your mind. Maybe, but if I'm wrong, I'll feel like an idiot for a few weeks and move on. If I'm right. Marcus turned to face his friend. If I'm right, then my children are living in hell, and I'm the only one who can save them. This could backfire in 100 different ways. I don't care. What if she recognizes you? She won't. I've already started growing a beard. I'll wear old clothes, keep my head down, speak with a different voice. Victoria barely looks at the help anyway. To her, they're furniture. David sighed heavily. And if you do find evidence, Marcus's eyes hardened, then I destroy her. The transformation took 3 days. Marcus hired Javier Ruiz, a struggling actor, to impersonate him on phone calls with Victoria. He purchased a realistic fake beard and spent hours learning to apply it. He bought worn clothes from a thrift store and practiced walking with a slight slouch, the posture of a man beaten down by life. When he looked in the mirror, he didn't recognize himself. The hardest part was the conversation with Victoria. A whole month in New York, she asked, her voice carrying just the right amount of disappointment. The investors insist on meeting in person. It's going to be tedious. Victoria nodded slowly, and Marcus watched her face carefully. There it was, a flicker of something in her eyes. Relief, anticipation. The children will miss you terribly, she said. I know. Take good care of them. Of course, darling. She kissed his cheek. You know I will. That night, after Victoria thought he was asleep, Marcus heard her on the phone in the bathroom. He pressed his ear against the door. He's leaving tomorrow. A whole month. Victoria's voice was low, excited. Finally, I can deal with those brats properly. They've been running wild since their mother died. Someone needs to teach them who's in charge now. Marcus's blood turned to ice. And when I'm done, Victoria continued, they'll be so terrified of me they won't dare tell their father anything. Trust me. I know exactly what I'm doing. She laughed, cold and cruel. Marcus stepped back from the door, his heart pounding. He had married a monster. He had left his children alone with her. But not anymore. The next morning, the gardener arrived. Grace Miller opened the back door and studied the man before her. He was tall, with a thick beard and tired eyes that seemed to hold a deep sadness. You must be the new gardener, she said with a warm smile. Yes, ma'am. Name's Robert. I'm Grace. I'll show you around. She led him through the property, pointing out the various tasks. Marcus listened carefully while studying her every movement. She was young, perhaps 28, with kind eyes and a gentle manner. There was something about her that felt trustworthy, genuine. The children are wonderful, Grace said softly as they passed the playground. Emma and Noah. They're sweet kids. Must be nice working in a home with children. Grace's smile faltered slightly. It has its challenges. Before Marcus could ask what she meant, Victoria's voice cut through the air. This is the new gardener. Grace turned quickly. Yes, Mrs. Thornton. His name is Robert. Victoria approached, her designer heels clicking against the stone. She looked Marcus up and down with obvious contempt. I hope you're more competent than the last one. He was utterly useless. I'll do my best, ma'am. You'll do better than your best. I don't tolerate mediocrity. She turned to Grace. Make sure he understands the rules. I want those hedges perfect by sunset. Yes, Mrs. Thornton. Victoria walked away without another word. Don't mind her, Grace whispered. She's just particular. Marcus wanted to tell her that Victoria wasn't particular. Victoria was evil. But he couldn't. Not yet. I'll get to work, he said quietly. For the next 3 hours, Marcus trimmed hedges and pulled weeds while watching his home from the outside. Every glimpse through the windows revealed something that made his stomach turn. At 10 o'clock, Victoria grabbed Emma by the hair because the girl had accidentally spilled a drop of juice. At 11, she screamed at Noah for touching a decorative vase, calling him a stupid, clumsy idiot, until he burst into tears. At noon, she refused to give the children lunch because they hadn't finished their breakfast fast enough. Marcus recorded everything on his phone hidden in his shirt pocket. Every cruel word, every threat, every moment of abuse. But the worst was yet to come. Around 3 o'clock, Emma and Noah came home from preschool and daycare. Victoria met them at the door with a smile that made Marcus's skin crawl. "Did you miss me?" she asked sweetly. Emma nodded frantically. "Yes, Mrs. Thornton." "Good, because I have a surprise for you." She led them into the living room. Marcus couldn't see what was happening, but he could hear everything through the open window. "I found something interesting today," Victoria said. "Would you like to know what it was?" Silence. "I found a drawing hidden under your mattress, Emma. A drawing of your dead mother." Marcus's heart stopped. "I thought we agreed," Victoria continued, her voice turning cold. "No more pictures of her. No more talking about her. She's gone. I'm your mother now." "I'm sorry," Emma whispered. "I just missed her." "You missed her, after everything I've done for you, after I left my beautiful apartment to live in this house with you. Ungrateful brats. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." Sorry isn't good enough. Marcus heard the sound of paper ripping. Once, twice, 3 times. Emma's sob echoed through the house. "There, now it's gone, just like she is." Victoria's voice was ice. "If I ever find another picture of her, I will take away everything you love. Your toys, your books, your brother. Do you understand me?" "Yes, Mrs. Thornton." "Good. Now go to your room. No dinner tonight." Marcus stood frozen behind the hedges, tears streaming down his face. Catherine's last wish had been for their children to remember her, to know how much she loved them. And Victoria was erasing her from their lives piece by piece. He wanted to burst through the door and tear Victoria apart with his bare hands. But he couldn't. Not yet. He needed more evidence. He needed to be patient. But God, it was killing him. That night, Marcus returned to his motel room and watched his recordings. 11 hours of footage. 11 hours of his children being terrorized. His phone buzzed. Victoria calling. He answered, forcing his voice to sound normal. "Hello, sweetheart." "Hello, darling. How was your day?" "Exhausting. Meetings from dawn to dusk." "Poor baby. At least you'll be home soon." She paused. "The children are doing wonderfully, by the way. I'm really making progress with them." Progress. Discipline. Structure. They're learning to respect authority. She laughed lightly. "You'd be so proud." Marcus gripped the phone so hard he thought it might shatter. "I'm sure I will be. 3 more weeks and you'll see the difference. They'll be perfect little angels." "I can't wait." "I love you, darling." "Good night, Victoria." He ended the call and threw the phone across the room. Perfect little angels. She was breaking his children and she thought she was creating angels. He lay on the bed and stared at the ceiling, his mind racing. He needed to stay calm. He needed to stay focused. He needed to gather enough evidence to bury her. But every fiber of his being screamed for justice, for revenge, for blood. Tomorrow, he told himself, tomorrow I'll get more evidence, and when I have enough, Victoria Sterling will wish she had never been born. Day 7 brought a new development. Marcus was trimming roses near the kitchen window when he heard Victoria on the phone again. Her voice was different this time, conspiratorial. "He suspects nothing. The idiot is completely focused on his business deal." She laughed. "By the time he gets back, the children will be so terrified of me, they'll never say a word against me. And once the adoption papers go through..." Marcus's blood ran cold. "Yes, exactly. Once I legally adopt them, I'll have full control over their trust funds. 20 million each. And if anything happens to dear Marcus..." She paused. "Well, as their legal mother, I'll inherit everything." Marcus stopped breathing. "Of course I've thought it through. A tragic accident. A car crash maybe. Or a fall down the stairs. Something believable." She laughed again. The grieving widow left alone with 2 small children. Who wouldn't feel sorry for me? This wasn't just abuse. This was a conspiracy. Victoria wasn't just torturing his children. She was planning to murder him and steal their inheritance. Marcus's hands shook as he fumbled for his phone. He needed to record this. He needed evidence of everything. But before he could press record, Victoria ended the call. He stood frozen, his mind reeling. How had he been so blind? How had he married a woman who wanted him dead? He thought about Catherine. How different she had been. How gentle, how loving, how pure. She would have been horrified to know who had taken her place. I'm so sorry, he thought. I failed you. But I won't fail them. I promise. That afternoon, something unexpected happened. Marcus was working near the playground when Emma wandered outside clutching a small book. She sat on the swing and began to read, her lips moving silently. Grace followed a moment later carrying 2 glasses of lemonade. She handed one to Emma and sat beside her on the grass. What are you reading, sweetheart? A story about a princess, Emma said quietly. Her mommy died and her daddy married a mean queen. Grace's face tightened. That sounds sad. It is sad. The mean queen is really mean to her. Emma looked up, her eyes wet. Miss Grace. Yes, honey. Do you think real mean queens ever get punished? Grace was silent for a long moment. Then she pulled Emma into a gentle hug. I think, she said softly, that mean people always get what they deserve. Sometimes it takes a while, but it always happens. Emma buried her face in Grace's shoulder. I hope so. Marcus watched from behind the hedge, tears streaming down his cheeks. His daughter was living in a fairy tale nightmare, and she was hoping for a happy ending that seemed impossible. But it wasn't impossible. He was going to make sure of it. The next day, Marcus nearly got caught. He was trimming bushes near the garage when Victoria came outside unexpectedly. She walked straight toward him, her eyes narrowed. You, gardener. Marcus kept his head down. Yes, ma'am? Have you been watching me? His heart stopped. Ma'am, I've seen you lurking around the windows. Why? I was just checking the plants near the house, ma'am, making sure they're getting enough sunlight. Victoria studied him for a long moment. Her eyes traveled over his face, his beard, his worn clothes. There's something familiar about you. Marcus forced himself to stay calm. I just have one of those faces, ma'am. She stepped closer, her perfume overwhelming. I don't like you. There's something off. I'm just trying to do my job, ma'am. See that you do, and stay away from my windows. She leaned close, her voice dropping to a whisper. I'm watching you. She walked away and Marcus exhaled slowly. That was too close. Far too close. He needed to be more careful. He couldn't get caught, not when he was so close to having everything he needed. That evening, Marcus stayed later than usual. He hid behind the garage and watched the house as the sun set. At 7 o'clock, Victoria called the children down for dinner. Marcus crept closer to the kitchen window and listened. Eat, Victoria commanded. I'm not hungry, Emma whispered. I didn't ask if you were hungry. I said eat. Emma picked up her fork and took a small bite. Faster. I don't have all night. Emma tried to eat faster, but she choked on a piece of bread. She coughed violently, her face turning red. Victoria's reaction was instantaneous. Oh, for God's sake, can you do nothing right? She grabbed Emma by the collar and yanked her out of the chair. Go to bed. If you can't eat properly, you don't deserve food. But I'm hungry. Then you should have thought of that before you started choking like an animal. Victoria shoved her toward the stairs. Go, now. Emma stumbled up the stairs, her sobs echoing through the house. Noah sat frozen at the table, his eyes wide with terror. Victoria turned to him. Finish your food, every bite, or you'll join her. The 2-year-old grabbed his spoon with trembling hands and began shoveling food into his mouth as fast as he could. Marcus's hands curled into fists. Every instinct screamed at him to break down the door and save his children, but he forced himself to stay hidden. 2 more days, he told himself. 2 more days of gathering evidence, and then it would be over. But fate had other plans. At 9 o'clock, Grace came outside to take out the trash. She was wiping her eyes, and Marcus could see she had been crying. "Are you all right?" he asked quietly. Grace jumped. "Robert, you scared me." "I'm sorry. I was just finishing up." Grace looked around nervously, then stepped closer. "Can I tell you something? Something I shouldn't—" "Of course. Something terrible is happening in this house." Her voice broke. "The children, they're being hurt. Every day. And I don't know what to do." Marcus's heart pounded. "Have you told anyone?" "Who would believe me? I'm just the maid. And Mrs. Thornton, she's powerful. She has connections. If I report her, she'll destroy me." "So what are you going to do?" Grace wiped her eyes. "I don't know. But I can't keep watching this. I can't keep pretending everything is okay while those babies suffer." Marcus wanted to tell her everything. He wanted to reveal who he really was and assure her that help was coming. But he couldn't risk it. Not yet. "Sometimes," he said carefully, "justice comes when you least expect it." Grace looked at him strangely. "What do you mean?" "I mean that people like Mrs. Thornton always get caught eventually. The truth has a way of coming out." Grace studied his face for a long moment. "There's something about you, Robert. Something different. I feel like I can trust you." "You can? Then tell me the truth." She stepped closer, her eyes searching his. "Who are you really?" Marcus's heart raced. He opened his mouth to answer, but before he could speak, a light came on in the upstairs window. Victoria's silhouette appeared behind the curtain. "She's watching," Grace whispered. "I have to go." She hurried inside, leaving Marcus alone with his racing thoughts. That night, he couldn't sleep. Grace was getting suspicious. Victoria was getting suspicious. His cover was slipping. He needed to act soon, before everything fell apart. Day 9 changed everything. Marcus arrived at the mansion early as usual. But something felt different. The air was thick with tension. At 8 o'clock, Victoria called a meeting with all the staff. Grace the cook, the driver. They gathered in the living room while Victoria stood before them like a queen addressing her subjects. "Someone in this house has been spying on me," she announced. Marcus's blood ran cold. "I've noticed things, whispers, looks. Someone is reporting my activities to someone outside this house." She walked slowly along the line of staff, studying each face. "When I find out who it is, they will be destroyed. Not just fired, destroyed. I will make sure they never work again. I will make sure their lives become a living hell." She stopped in front of Grace. "You've been very concerned about the children lately, haven't you, Grace?" Grace's face paled. "I'm just doing my job, Mrs. Thornton." "Are you? Or are you plotting against me? I would never—" "We'll see." Victoria smiled coldly. "I'll be watching all of you, very carefully." She walked out of the room, leaving stunned silence behind her. Grace caught Marcus's eye across the room. Her expression was terrified, and Marcus knew with absolute certainty that time was running out. At noon, Marcus made a decision. He would reveal himself in 2 days. He had enough evidence. He had recordings, videos, photographs. He had Victoria's own words admitting her abuse and her plan to steal his children's inheritance. But he wanted one more piece of evidence, something undeniable, something that would guarantee Victoria would never see his children again. He got his wish that afternoon. At 3 o'clock, Emma came home from school with a note from her teacher. She had failed a spelling test. Victoria's reaction was volcanic. "Failed, you failed." "It was hard, Mrs. Thornton. I tried my best." "Your best isn't good enough. Your best is pathetic." Victoria grabbed Emma's arm and dragged her toward the stairs. "I'll teach you what happens to failures in this house." Marcus followed, keeping to the shadows. He positioned himself beneath the window of Emma's room and watched. Victoria pushed Emma onto the bed. "Take off your shoes." Emma obeyed, trembling. "Now stand against the wall." Emma stood with her back to the wall, her small body shaking with fear. Victoria reached into her pocket and pulled out a wooden ruler. "Hold out your hands." "Please, Mrs. Thornton, please don't." "Hold out your hands." Emma extended her trembling hands, tears streaming down her face. Victoria raised the ruler. "Every failure," she said, bringing the ruler down hard, "has consequences." Emma screamed. Every mistake, another strike, requires punishment. Another scream. And every child, a third strike, must learn obedience. Emma collapsed to her knees, clutching her bruised and bleeding hands. Victoria stood over her, satisfied. Next time you'll study harder. She walked out of the room without another word. Marcus stood frozen, his phone clutched in his shaking hands. He had recorded everything, every word, every strike, every scream. And in that moment, he knew he couldn't wait 2 more days. He couldn't wait 2 more hours. It ended tonight. At 7 o'clock, Marcus put his plan into motion. He called David Chen from the motel. I need you here tomorrow morning, early. Bring the police, bring Child Protective Services, bring everyone. What happened? She beat Emma with a ruler until her hands bled. I have it all on video. David was silent for a long moment. I'll be there at 7 a.m. Make it 6. I don't want to give her time to prepare. Marcus, are you okay? No. But I will be. Tomorrow, this ends. He ended the call and began preparing for the confrontation that would change everything. But across town in the Thornton mansion, another conversation was taking place. Victoria sat in her bedroom, phone pressed to her ear. I'm telling you, something is wrong. That gardener, there's something about him that doesn't add up. You're being paranoid, said the voice on the other end. I'm being careful. I've come too far to get caught now. So what are you going to do? Victoria smiled coldly. I'm going to fire him. Tomorrow morning, first thing. And then I'm going to do a little digging. Find out who Robert really is. And if he's nobody, then no harm done. But if he's somebody, she paused. Well, I know how to deal with problems. She ended the call and walked to the window, staring out at the dark garden. Who are you, Robert? She whispered. And why do I feel like I've seen you before? In the shadows below her window, a forgotten garden tool lay exactly where Marcus had left it that afternoon. A tool with the initials MT engraved on the handle. And in the morning, everything would change. The clock on Marcus's motel nightstand read 5:47 a.m. when his phone rang. David Chen's voice was tense on the other end. We have a problem. Marcus sat up immediately. What happened? Victoria's lawyer called me an hour ago. She's filing for emergency custody of the children. What on what grounds? Abandonment. She's claiming you've been unreachable for days, that you've abandoned your family to pursue business interests. David paused. She's scheduled a hearing for tomorrow morning. Marcus's blood ran cold. She can't do that. I've been calling her every night. She's claiming those calls were brief and dismissive, that you've shown no interest in the children's welfare. David's voice tightened. Marcus, she's trying to take them before you even get back. Then we move today. Right now. The police can't mobilize that fast. I need at least 4 hours to coordinate with CPS and law enforcement. Marcus checked his watch. You have until 10 o'clock. After that, I'm going in alone. That's dangerous. If you confront her without backup... She beat my daughter until her hands bled David. I'm not waiting another minute longer than I have to. He ended the call and began preparing for war. At 6:23 a.m., Marcus drove to the mansion in his old pickup truck. He parked 2 blocks away and approached on foot, staying in the shadows. The house was dark except for a single light in Victoria's bedroom. She was awake, planning. Marcus circled to the back of the property and slipped through the garden gate. His tools were still where he'd left them, including the trowel with his initials. He grabbed it and shoved it into his pocket. No evidence left behind. He crouched behind the rose bushes and waited. At 6:45 a.m., the kitchen light came on. Grace appeared, starting her morning routine. She looked exhausted, her movements slow and heavy. At 7:02 a.m., Victoria came downstairs. Marcus positioned himself near the kitchen window, close enough to hear everything. Coffee? Victoria demanded. And make it stronger today. I have important business. Yes, Mrs. Thornton. Victoria sat at the table, scrolling through her phone. Where are the children? Still sleeping, ma'am. Wake them. I want them dressed and ready by 8. Grace hesitated. Mrs. Thornton, Emma's hands are still very swollen. Maybe she should rest today. Victoria's head snapped up. Did I ask for your medical opinion? No, ma'am, but... Then do as you're told. Victoria's voice dropped to ice. Or would you like to join the gardener on the unemployment line? Grace paled. The gardener. I'm firing him today. There's something suspicious about that man, and I don't tolerate suspicion in my house. Marcus's heart pounded. She was moving faster than he'd anticipated. Grace's hands trembled as she poured the coffee. I'll wake the children now. Good. And Grace? Victoria smiled coldly. If I find out you've been conspiring with anyone against me, I will make your life a living nightmare. Do you understand? Yes, Mrs. Thornton. Grace hurried out of the kitchen, her face white with fear. At 7:31 a.m., Marcus's phone buzzed. A text from David. Police confirmed for 10 a.m., CPS en route. Hold your position. Marcus typed back, Victoria planning to fire me at 8. May need to move earlier. David's response was immediate. Do not engage alone. Wait for backup. Marcus stared at the message, then looked up at the window of Emma's room. His daughter was up there with bruised and bleeding hands, living in terror of the woman who was supposed to protect her. He couldn't wait 3 more hours. He couldn't wait 3 more minutes. But before he could move, something happened that changed everything. At 7:38 a.m., Grace came running out of the house. She wasn't supposed to be outside. She was supposed to be waking the children. But here she was, running across the lawn toward the garden shed, her face streaked with tears. Marcus intercepted her. Grace, what happened? She jumped, startled by his presence. Robert, what are you doing here so early? I couldn't sleep. What's wrong? Grace looked around frantically, making sure they weren't being watched. It's Emma. She's locked in her room. Mrs. Thornton locked her in last night as punishment, and now... Her voice broke. Now she won't come out. She's not answering. I can hear her crying, but she won't open the door. Marcus's blood turned to ice. Show me. I can't. Mrs. Thornton will... Show me. Now. Something in his voice made Grace stop. She studied his face, really looked at him for the first time. Who are you? She whispered. Who are you really? Marcus grabbed her shoulders. I'm someone who can help. But you need to trust me. Can you do that? Grace hesitated for only a second. Yes. They moved quickly, slipping through the back door, while Victoria was distracted in the dining room. The stairs creaked under their feet, but they kept moving. Emma's room was at the end of the hallway. The door was locked from the outside with a heavy padlock. Mrs. Thornton installed it last month, Grace whispered, for discipline. Marcus's hands shook as he examined the lock. It was industrial grade, impossible to break without tools. Emma, he called softly through the door. Emma, sweetheart, can you hear me? Silence. Emma, it's... He stopped himself. He couldn't reveal his identity. Not yet. Not like this. It's Robert, the gardener. Miss Grace is here too. We want to help you. A small voice emerged from behind the door. I can't come out. She'll hurt me again. No one is going to hurt you, I promise. You can't promise that. No one can. Emma's voice cracked. She always hurts me. Every day. And Daddy doesn't know. Daddy's not here. Marcus pressed his forehead against the door, fighting back tears. What if I told you that Daddy does know? What if I told you that help is coming? Silence. Would you believe me, Emma? A long pause. Then, how do you know my daddy? Marcus looked at Grace. She was staring at him with wide eyes, realization slowly dawning on her face. Oh my God, she breathed. It's you. You're... Not here, Marcus said quickly. We need to get this door open first. Grace pulled a hairpin from her ponytail. I learned how to pick locks when I was a teenager. Long story. She knelt before the padlock and began working. Keep her talking. Marcus turned back to the door. Emma, we're going to get you out of there. Just hold on a little longer. She's going to be so angry, Emma whispered. She's going to hurt me worse than before. No, she's not. I won't let her. How you're just the gardener. Marcus closed his eyes. I'm not just the gardener, sweetheart. I'm someone who loves you very much. The lock clicked open. Grace yanked off the padlock and pushed the door open. Emma sat huddled in the corner of her room, her knees pulled to her chest, her bandaged hands cradled against her body. When she saw Marcus, her eyes went wide. "You look like my daddy," she whispered. Marcus knelt before her, tears streaming down his face. "That's because I am your daddy." Emma stared at him, then at his beard, then at his worn clothes. "Daddy, I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I'm so sorry I didn't protect you." He reached for her and she flung herself into his arms, sobbing. "It's over now. It's all over." Grace stood in the doorway, tears rolling down her cheeks. "I knew it. I knew there was something about you." "Where's Noah?" Marcus asked, still holding Emma tight. "In his room. Mrs. Thornton locks him in too." "Get him! Now!" Grace ran down the hallway while Marcus carried Emma toward the stairs. His daughter clung to him like she was afraid he would disappear. "She told me you didn't love us anymore," Emma sobbed. "She told me you were never coming back. She lied, baby. She lied about everything." They reached the bottom of the stairs just as Victoria emerged from the dining room. Time stopped. Victoria's eyes traveled from Marcus to Emma to the broken padlock dangling from his hand. Her face went through a dozen emotions in 3 seconds. Confusion, recognition, fury, fear. "You," she breathed. "It was you. All along." Marcus set Emma down behind him. "It's over, Victoria." "How dare you?" Her voice rose to a scream. "How dare you spy on me in my own house? Your house. This is my house. These are my children, and you will never touch them again." Victoria's eyes darted to the front door, calculating. "You have no proof of anything." Marcus pulled out his phone. "I have 2 weeks of recordings. Every slap, every threat. Every time you starved them, locked them up, beat them with a ruler." He pressed play. Victoria's own voice filled the room. "Fear works better than love. Love makes children spoiled." Victoria lunged for the phone, but Marcus stepped back. "The police are on their way. Child Protective Services, my lawyers. It's over." "Nothing is over," Victoria screamed. "I'll deny everything. I'll tell them you faked those recordings. I'll tell them you're an abusive husband who abandoned his family." "And Emma will tell them what really happened, won't you, sweetheart?" Emma's small voice emerged from behind him. "She hit me, every day. She called me stupid and ugly and said Mommy was never coming back." Victoria's face twisted with rage. "You ungrateful little—" She started toward Emma, but Marcus blocked her path. "Touch her, and I will break every bone in your body." "You wouldn't dare." "Try me." They stood face to face, hatred crackling between them like electricity. Then footsteps pounded down the stairs. Grace appeared carrying a crying Noah in her arms. "Daddy?" Noah reached for Marcus, his small fingers grasping. Marcus took his son with one arm, keeping his body between Victoria and the children. "We're leaving now." "You're not going anywhere." Victoria grabbed a vase from the table and raised it over her head. "Those children are mine. I've invested 6 months in them. They belong to me." "They belong to no one but themselves." Victoria swung the vase. Marcus ducked, shielding the children with his body. The vase shattered against the wall, showering them with ceramic shards. "Run!" Marcus shouted to Grace. "Take them outside." Grace grabbed Emma's hand and ran for the back door. Marcus followed, still carrying Noah, as Victoria screamed behind them. "You can't do this to me. I'll destroy you. I'll take everything you have." They burst through the back door and into the garden. The morning sun was just rising, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. Marcus ran toward the gate, his children in his arms, Grace beside him. But Victoria wasn't finished. She appeared on the back porch, a phone pressed to her ear. "Police, I need help. My husband has gone insane. He's kidnapping my children. Send everyone." "Now." Marcus froze. "She's calling the cops." "She's lying to them," Grace said. "They'll believe her." "Not if we get to them first." Marcus handed Noah to Grace. "Take the children to my truck. It's parked 2 blocks east. Here are the keys." "What about you?" "I'll handle Victoria." "Marcus, go. Protect my children. Please." Grace looked at him for a long moment. Then she nodded and ran, carrying Noah while Emma clutched her hand. Marcus turned back to face Victoria. She was walking toward him slowly, a satisfied smile on her face. "The police will be here in minutes. What's your plan, Marcus Runhide?" "I'm not running. I'm waiting." "For what?" "For the truth to come out." Victoria laughed. "The truth, I'm a grieving stepmother whose husband abandoned her. I've been caring for his children alone for weeks while he pretended to be a gardener. Who do you think they'll believe?" "They'll believe the recordings." "Recordings can be faked. Not the bruises on Emma's hands, not the marks on her arms, not the padlocks on their doors." Victoria's smile faltered slightly. "I was disciplining them. Any parent has that right." "Discipline? You beat a 6-year-old with a ruler until she bled. You starved them. You locked them in their rooms for hours. That's not discipline. That's torture." "It's my word against yours, and Grace's, and the children's, and the recordings, and the medical examinations they'll get today." For the first time, real fear flickered in Victoria's eyes. "We can make a deal." "No deals. I'll leave, disappear. You'll never see me again." "You'll go to prison." "Marcus, please." Her voice changed, becoming soft pleading. "I never meant to hurt them. I was stressed, overwhelmed. You were never here. I didn't know what to do." "Save it for the judge." Sirens wailed in the distance. Victoria's head snapped toward the sound. "They're coming," she said. "And they're going to arrest you. Not me. You. We'll see." 2 police cars screeched to a halt in front of the mansion. Officers poured out guns drawn. "On the ground!" one of them shouted. "Both of you, now!" Marcus raised his hands slowly and knelt on the grass. Victoria did the same, tears streaming down her face. "Officer, thank God you're here," she sobbed. "This man kidnapped my children. He's been stalking me for weeks." "That's not true," Marcus said calmly. "My name is Marcus Thornton. I own this house. Those are my children, and this woman has been abusing them for months." The officers exchanged glances. "We need to sort this out at the station. Call Detective Sarah Mitchell at the downtown precinct. She's expecting to hear from you." Victoria's face went white. "What?" "I've been in contact with the police for 3 days. They know everything." Before Victoria could respond, another vehicle pulled up. David Chen stepped out, followed by 2 CPS workers and Detective Mitchell herself. "Officers, I'm Detective Mitchell. We have a warrant to investigate allegations of child abuse at this residence." She looked at Victoria. "Mrs. Thornton, you're going to need to come with us for questioning." Victoria's composure shattered completely. "This is a setup. He planned all of this." "That may be true, ma'am, but we've also received multiple recordings of you admitting to abuse. We'll sort out the details at the station." As the officers helped Victoria to her feet, she turned to Marcus with pure hatred in her eyes. "This isn't over," she hissed. "I will make you pay for this." "It's already over, Victoria. You just don't know it yet." They led her away, and Marcus finally allowed himself to breathe. David approached, his face pale. "That was too close." "Where are my children?" "Grace has them in the truck. They're safe." Marcus started walking toward the gate, his legs suddenly weak. The adrenaline was fading, replaced by exhaustion and overwhelming relief. He found Grace sitting in the truck with Emma on her lap and Noah in his car seat. Both children were crying, but they were unharmed. "Daddy." Emma reached for him as he opened the door. Marcus pulled her into his arms and held her tight. "It's okay now, baby. Everything's going to be okay." "Is the mean lady going to jail?" "Yes, sweetheart. She's never going to hurt you again." Noah babbled something incomprehensible and reached for Marcus's beard. Marcus laughed and pulled it off, revealing his real face. "See, it's really me." Emma touched his cheek in wonder. "You were the gardener the whole time." "I had to find out what was happening. I had to protect you." "I knew something was different about you," Emma said softly. "You were nice. You smiled at me." Marcus kissed her forehead. "I'm never leaving you again. I promise." Grace watched from the driver's seat, tears streaming down her face. Marcus caught her eye. "Thank you," he said, "for everything you did. I just did what anyone should do." "No, you risked your job. your safety. You protected my children when I couldn't." He reached across Emma and took Grace's hand. "I will never forget that." Grace squeezed his hand back. "They're worth protecting." Marcus looked at his children, both of them finally safe in his arms. The nightmare was over. Victoria would face justice, and his family would heal. But as he sat in that truck holding his children close, he knew this was just the beginning. The road ahead would be long. There would be court battles, therapy sessions, sleepless nights. And somewhere in the back of his mind, Victoria's words echoed like a warning. This isn't over. At 10:47 a.m., Marcus sat in the police station watching through a two-way mirror as Detective Mitchell interrogated Victoria. "The recordings are clear, Mrs. Thornton. Your own voice admitting to abuse." "Those recordings were doctored. My husband is a wealthy man. He could hire anyone to fake evidence. We also have testimony from Grace Miller and preliminary medical examinations of the children showing signs of repeated physical trauma." Victoria's lawyer leaned in and whispered something. She nodded. "I want a deal." Detective Mitchell leaned back. "What kind of deal?" "I'll plead guilty to lesser charges, excessive discipline, emotional distress. In exchange, no prison time." "That's not my decision to make." Victoria looked directly at the mirror as if she knew Marcus was watching. "Tell my husband that if he pursues this, I'll release every secret he has. His business deals, his tax records, everything." Marcus's jaw tightened. She was bluffing. She had to be. David appeared beside him. "She doesn't have anything on you, Marcus. I've checked." "Are you sure?" "Positive. This is a desperation move." But something in Victoria's smile made Marcus uneasy. She was too confident, too calm. What did she know that he didn't? At 11:32 a.m., Victoria's lawyer produced a document. "My client has evidence that Mr. Thornton was involved in securities fraud 3 years ago. If this case goes to trial, we will release it to the press." Detective Mitchell looked through the mirror at Marcus. "Is this true?" Marcus's blood ran cold. 3 years ago, the Anderson deal. He had thought it was buried forever. "I need to speak with my lawyer," he said quietly. He stepped out of the observation room, his mind racing. The Anderson deal had been questionable, yes. Some paperwork had been adjusted, but it was minor. Nothing that should have mattered. Unless Victoria had found something more. David followed him into the hallway. "What is she talking about?" "The Anderson acquisition. 3 years ago, there were some irregularities." "How serious?" Marcus was silent for a long moment. "Serious enough." David's face went pale. "Marcus, why didn't you tell me?" "Because I thought it was over. I thought no one would ever find out." Victoria found out. Apparently so. They stood in silence, the weight of the situation pressing down on them. "What do we do?" David finally asked. Marcus looked back at the interrogation room. Through the glass, he could see Victoria smiling. She had been planning this all along. The abuse, the control, the manipulation. It was all building toward this moment. She wanted his money, his children, his freedom, and she had the ammunition to take it all. At 12:15 p.m., Marcus made a decision. He walked back into the observation room and picked up the intercom. "Detective Mitchell, I'd like to speak with my wife." Mitchell raised an eyebrow. "Are you sure that's wise?" "No, but it's necessary." A moment later, Marcus was sitting across from Victoria in the interrogation room. Her lawyer stood behind her, arms crossed. "Hello, darling," Victoria said sweetly. "Missing me already. What do you want?" "Simple. Drop the charges. Grant me full custody of the children and 50% of your assets. In exchange, the Anderson documents stay buried." Marcus leaned forward. "You would use abused children as bargaining chips. I would do whatever it takes to survive. And if I refuse," Victoria's smile widened, "then everyone finds out what you did. Your investors, your board, the SEC. You'll lose everything, Marcus. Your company, your reputation, your freedom." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood. "No." Victoria's smile faltered. "Excuse me." "I said no. I won't drop the charges. I won't give you my children. And I won't give you a single penny." "You're bluffing." I'm not. Release whatever you have. Tell the whole world. I don't care anymore. Victoria stared at him. You'll go to prison. Maybe. But so will you. And my children will be safe. Marcus walked toward the door. That's all that matters. You're making a huge mistake. Marcus turned back one last time. The only mistake I made was marrying you, and I intend to spend the rest of my life making up for it. He walked out, leaving Victoria screaming behind him. At 2:30 p.m., Marcus sat in the hospital waiting room while doctors examined Emma and Noah. Grace sat beside him, her hand resting gently on his arm. You did the right thing, she said. Did I just gambled my entire future on a bluff. It wasn't a bluff, you meant every word. Marcus looked at her. How do you know? Because I saw your face when you held your daughter. I saw how much you love them. Grace squeezed his arm. A man who loves like that doesn't compromise. Not for money, not for power, not for anything. Marcus was silent for a moment. You barely know me. I know enough. Grace smiled softly. I know you pretended to be a gardener for 2 weeks to protect your children. I know you watched your daughter suffer because you needed evidence to save her. I know you gave up everything today to keep them safe. And what about you? You risked everything too. Grace shrugged. They're good kids. They deserved someone in their corner. They had you. And now they have you. The doctor emerged from the examination room. Mr. Thornton. Marcus stood immediately. How are they? Physically, they'll recover. Emma's hands will need time to heal, and both children show signs of malnutrition. But with proper care, they should be fine. And emotionally? The doctor hesitated. That will take longer. They've been through significant trauma. I recommend intensive therapy for both of them. Whatever they need, whatever it takes. There's something else. The doctor's voice softened. Emma asked me to give you a message. Marcus's heart clenched. What message? She said to tell you that she drew a new picture of you, and this time no one is going to tear it up. Marcus closed his eyes, tears streaming down his face. It was going to be a long road. There would be more battles ahead, more pain, more healing. But for the first time in months, he felt something he had almost forgotten. Hope. At 4:47 p.m., Marcus received a call from David. Victoria made bail. Marcus's blood ran cold. What? Her lawyer paid the bond. She's out. Where is she now? We don't know. She walked out of the station 20 minutes ago and disappeared. Marcus looked at Grace, then at the hospital room where his children were resting. Find her, David. Find her now. But even as he spoke the words, Marcus knew the truth. Victoria Sterling was out there somewhere planning her next move, and the war was far from over. The clock read 5:12 p.m. when Marcus made his decision. He turned to Grace, his jaw set with determination. I need you to stay with the children. Grace grabbed his arm. Where are you going? To find her before she finds us. Marcus, that's insane. Let the police handle it. The police let her walk out of the station. They're not going to find her in time. He pulled his arm free gently. Victoria is dangerous. She has nothing left to lose. And when people have nothing to lose, they become unpredictable. Then at least take someone with you. I work better alone. Grace stepped in front of him, blocking his path. You work better alone. Is that why you spent 2 weeks pretending to be a gardener instead of just asking me what was happening? Marcus stopped. That's different. It's exactly the same. You think you have to do everything yourself. You think asking for help is weakness. Grace's eyes burned with intensity. But it's not weakness, Marcus. It's wisdom. Let me help you. You've already helped enough. Not nearly enough. She took his hand. Those children lost their mother. They almost lost their father to his own blindness. They can't lose you now because you were too proud to accept help. Marcus looked at her for a long moment. This woman who had risked everything for his children. This woman who had stood between Victoria and Emma without hesitation. This woman who saw through his disguise not because of his appearance, but because of his heart. "Okay," he said finally. "But you stay in the car, no matter what happens. Deal." At 5:34 p.m., Marcus and Grace pulled into the parking lot of Victoria's downtown apartment. The building was sleek and modern, exactly the kind of place she would choose. "Wait here," Marcus said. "I'm coming with you." "Grace, I said I'd stay in the car when things got dangerous. Walking into an apartment building isn't dangerous," Marcus sighed. "Fine, but if anything happens, you run. Understood?" "Understood." They entered the building and took the elevator to the penthouse floor. Victoria's apartment was at the end of the hallway behind a door that cost more than most people's cars. Marcus knocked. No answer. He knocked again. "Victoria, I know you're in there. We need to talk." Silence. Grace pressed her ear against the door. "I don't hear anything." Marcus tried the handle. Locked. He pulled out his phone and called David. "I'm at Victoria's apartment. She's not answering." "The police are on their way. Don't do anything stupid." "I'm going in." "Marcus, wait." He ended the call and turned to Grace. "Stand back." "What are you going to do?" Instead of answering, Marcus took 3 steps back and slammed his shoulder into the door. The lock held. He tried again and again. On the 4th attempt, the frame splintered and the door flew open. The apartment was empty, but not undisturbed. Papers were scattered across the floor. Drawers had been pulled open and ransacked. A suitcase lay open on the bed, half-packed. "She left in a hurry," Grace observed. Marcus walked through the apartment looking for clues. On the kitchen counter, he found a handwritten note. "What does it say?" Grace asked. Marcus read aloud. "You thought you could destroy me. You were wrong. By the time you find this, I will have taken everything that matters to you. This is just the beginning." Grace's face went pale. "The children!" Marcus was already running. At 5:58 p.m., Marcus burst through the hospital doors, his heart pounding so hard he could barely breathe. He sprinted down the hallway toward the children's room, shoving past nurses and orderlies. The door was open. The room was empty. "No," Marcus whispered. "No, no, no." A nurse appeared beside him. "Mr. Thornton, is everything all right? My children? Where are my children?" "They were moved about 20 minutes ago. A woman came with transfer papers. She said she was taking them to a private facility." Marcus grabbed the nurse's shoulders. "What woman? What did she look like?" "Tall, blonde, very well dressed. She had all the proper documentation." "Victoria." Marcus pulled out his phone and dialed David with shaking hands. "She took them. Victoria took the children." "What? How?" "Fake transfer papers. She walked right into the hospital and took them." His voice cracked. "David, she has my babies." "I'm calling the police right now. We'll issue an Amber Alert." "That's not fast enough. She could be anywhere by now." Grace appeared beside him, breathless. "Marcus, I found something. A security guard saw a woman matching Victoria's description getting into a black SUV in the parking garage. He got a partial plate number." Marcus grabbed the information and ran for the exit. "Send it to every cop in the city, David. Find that car." At 6:23 p.m., Marcus was driving 90 miles an hour down the freeway, weaving between cars like a man possessed. Grace sat beside him, her phone pressed to her ear. "The police spotted the SUV heading east on the 101, she reported. "They're in pursuit." "How far ahead?" "About 15 minutes. Marcus pressed the accelerator harder. The engine roared in protest. "Marcus, slow down. You're going to get us killed." "I can't slow down. Every second she has them is a second too long." His phone buzzed. David's voice came through the speaker. "Marcus, we have a problem." "What now?" "Victoria's lawyer just filed an emergency motion claiming you kidnapped the children from her lawful custody. He's arguing that you're a danger to them." "That's insane." "It's buying her time. The police are hesitating to intervene." Marcus slammed his fist against the steering wheel. "She's manipulating the system, just like she manipulated me." "There's more. The Anderson documents. She released them to the press about 10 minutes ago." Marcus felt his stomach drop. "What It's all over the news. Securities fraud allegations. Your stock is plummeting. The board is calling an emergency meeting. I don't care about the stock. I don't care about the board. I only care about my children. I know. But Marcus, David hesitated. You need to understand what you're walking into. Even if you get the kids back, your life is about to become very complicated. Then it becomes complicated. Deal with it. Marcus ended the call and focused on the road ahead. At 6:47 p.m., they spotted the black SUV. It was parked at a rest stop, engine still running. Marcus screeched to a halt and jumped out before the car had fully stopped. Victoria? No response. He approached the SUV carefully. The windows were tinted impossible to see through. He reached for the door handle. I wouldn't do that if I were you. Marcus spun around. Victoria stood behind him, holding Noah in her arms. Emma stood beside her, a grown man's hand clamped firmly on her shoulder. The man was huge, easily 6'4", with the build of a professional bodyguard. Let them go, Victoria. I don't think so. She smiled that cold, cruel smile. You see, Marcus, you made a mistake. You thought this was about money, about revenge, about winning. What is it about then? It's about control. Victoria's eyes glittered. You took everything from me, my reputation, my future, my freedom. So now I'm going to take everything from you. These are children, Victoria. Innocent children. Our children. They were never our children. They were always Catherine's children, and you never let me forget it. Her voice turned bitter. Every time Emma looked at me, I saw Catherine's eyes judging me. Every time Noah cried, I heard Catherine's voice telling me I wasn't good enough. So you punished them for existing. I disciplined them. There's a difference. You're insane, Victoria laughed. Maybe, but I'm the one holding the cards now. She gestured to the bodyguard. Put the girl in the car. No, Emma screamed, struggling against the man's grip. Daddy, help me. Marcus started forward, but the bodyguard pulled something from his jacket. A gun. Stay where you are, the man growled. Marcus froze. Victoria, please, don't do this. It's already done. Victoria opened the rear door of the SUV. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to get back in your car and drive away. You're going to tell the police you made a mistake, that I'm taking the children for a routine visit. And you're never going to contact us again. And if I refuse... Victoria looked at the gun, then at Emma. Then things get messy. Grace emerged from Marcus's car, her hands raised. Mrs. Thornton, please. Think about what you're doing. Those children need their father. Those children need discipline, structure, control. Victoria's eyes never left Marcus. Things their father was never willing to provide. I'll give you whatever you want, Marcus said desperately. Money, the house, everything I own. Just let them go. It's too late for bargains, Marcus. You should have thought about that before you humiliated me in front of the police. Emma's voice cut through the tension, small but steady. Miss Grace. Grace looked at the child. Yes, sweetheart. Remember what you told me about mean queens? Grace's eyes widened. I remember. You said they always get what they deserve. Sometimes it just takes a while. Victoria's face twisted with rage. Shut up. You're a mean queen, Emma continued, her voice growing stronger. And Daddy's going to stop you, just like in the stories. I said shut up. Victoria raised her hand to strike. 3 things happened simultaneously. Marcus lunged forward, the bodyguard raised his gun, and police sirens erupted from every direction. At 7:03 p.m., the rest stop was surrounded. 6 police cars formed a perimeter around the SUV. Officers crouched behind their vehicles, weapons drawn. A helicopter thundered overhead, its spotlight illuminating the entire scene. Victoria Sterling, a voice boomed through a megaphone. Release the children and surrender peacefully. Victoria's face went white. No, this isn't happening. The bodyguard looked around nervously. Ma'am, we need to go, now. There's nowhere to go, you idiot. They're everywhere. Marcus took a careful step forward. It's over, Victoria. Let them go. It's never over. She pulled Noah closer, using him as a shield. Tell them to back off, or I'll... You'll what? Hurt your own stepson. Marcus shook his head. Even you're not that far gone. You don't know what I'm capable of. Actually, I do. I've been watching you for 2 weeks, remember? I've seen your worst. He took another step. And I've also seen your fear. You're terrified right now. Terrified of losing. Terrified of going to prison. Terrified of being alone. Victoria's eyes glistened. Don't pretend you understand me. I understand you better than you think. You came from nothing. You fought for everything you have, and when you finally got it, you were so afraid of losing it that you became a monster. I am not a monster. Then prove it. Let them go. For a long moment, Victoria didn't move. Tears streamed down her face. Her arms trembled around Noah. Then slowly she set him down. Noah ran straight to Marcus, who scooped him up in one arm while reaching for Emma with the other. The bodyguard dropped his gun and raised his hands as police swarmed in. Victoria stood alone, surrounded by officers. Her designer clothes disheveled, her perfect makeup ruined by tears. I loved you, she said softly. I really did love you. Marcus looked at her. No, you didn't. You loved what I represented. The money, the power, the status. But you never loved me. And you never loved them. That's not true. It is true, and deep down you know it. The officers approached with handcuffs. Victoria didn't resist. I'm sorry, she whispered, for everything. Marcus watched them lead her away. He felt no satisfaction, no triumph, only exhaustion and overwhelming relief. Grace appeared beside him, her face streaked with tears. Is it really over? It's really over. Emma tugged at his sleeve. Daddy, yes, sweetheart. I was really brave, wasn't I? Marcus knelt down and pulled her into his arms. You were the bravest person I've ever known. At 8:34 p.m., Marcus sat in the police station answering questions for what felt like the 100th time. Grace sat beside him holding Noah in her lap. Emma had fallen asleep against Marcus's shoulder, exhausted by the ordeal. Detective Mitchell entered the interview room with a fresh cup of coffee. Good news. Victoria's been officially charged with kidnapping, child endangerment, and assault. Her bail has been revoked. She's not getting out this time. And the bodyguard, cooperating fully, turns out he had no idea what he was getting into. Victoria told him she was rescuing her children from an abusive father. Marcus shook his head. She almost convinced him to shoot me. Almost being the key word. Mitchell sat down across from him. There's something else. The Anderson documents she released to the press. We've examined them thoroughly. Marcus's stomach tightened. And they're forgeries. Very good forgeries, but forgeries nonetheless. Victoria had them manufactured to use as leverage against you. So there's no securities fraud case. Not even close. Your record is clean, Mr. Thornton. Mitchell smiled slightly. You're free to go. Marcus closed his eyes, overwhelmed with relief. Thank you. Don't thank me. Thank your daughter. If she hadn't stalled Victoria at the rest stop, we might not have gotten there in time. Marcus looked down at Emma, sleeping peacefully for the first time in months. She's amazing. She gets it from her father. At 9:17 p.m., they finally left the police station. The night air was cool and fresh, a stark contrast to the tension of the past few hours. David was waiting by his car. I just got off the phone with the board. They've seen Mitchell's report about the forgeries. The emergency meeting has been canceled. Your position is secure. I don't care about my position anymore. You should. That company is your children's future. Marcus looked at Emma and Noah, both asleep in Grace's arms. No, they are their own future. The company is just money. David smiled. Catherine would be proud of you. You think so? I know so. They drove home in silence. When they pulled into the driveway of the mansion, Marcus hesitated. I can't go back in there, he said quietly. Not after everything that happened. Grace touched his arm. Then we find somewhere else, somewhere new, somewhere safe. Grace blushed slightly. I mean, if you want. Marcus took her hand. I want. Very much. At 10:42 p.m., they checked into a hotel suite downtown. It was nothing fancy, just 2 bedrooms and a small living area, but it felt like paradise after the horrors of the past few days. Grace tucked Emma and Noah into one of the beds, singing softly until they fell asleep. Marcus watched from the doorway, his heart full of emotions he couldn't name. When she emerged, he was waiting. "Thank you," he said, "for everything, for saving my children, for staying with us, for believing in me when I gave you no reason to." "You gave me every reason to," Grace replied. "You loved your children enough to become invisible. You sacrificed your pride, your comfort, your identity just to protect them. That's the kind of man I believe in." Marcus reached for her hand. "I know this is all happening very fast, and I know you have your own life, your own plans, but I need to ask you something." "What?" "When all this is over, when the trials are finished and the headlines fade and life goes back to normal, would you consider staying not as a maid, not as an employee, just as someone who's part of our lives?" Grace's eyes glistened. "Are you asking me to be your girlfriend, Mr. Thornton?" "I'm asking you to be whatever you want to be. Friend, partner, family." He squeezed her hand. "I just know I don't want to face the future without you." Grace was quiet for a long moment. Then she smiled, warm and genuine. "Ask me again when the dust settles, when you've had time to think clearly, when you're sure it's not just gratitude or adrenaline. And if I ask again, then I'll say yes." Marcus smiled back. "Deal." At 11:58 p.m., Marcus lay awake in the hotel room, listening to the soft breathing of his children in the next room. The events of the day played through his mind like a movie, each scene more surreal than the last. His phone buzzed, a text from David. "Just heard from the DA. Victoria's trial is set for next month. They're expecting a conviction. She could get 20 years. Marcus typed back, "Good. She deserves every day of it." "There's more. Catherine's parents called. They want to see the kids. They've been worried sick since the news broke." Marcus closed his eyes. Catherine's parents. Harold and Margaret. They had been devastated when their daughter died, and they had watched helplessly as Marcus married a woman they never trusted. "Tell them they can visit whenever they want. The children need all the family they can get." "Will do. Get some sleep, Marcus. You've earned it." He set down the phone and stared at the ceiling. Sleep seemed impossible after everything that had happened. His mind kept racing, replaying every moment, every decision, every mistake. But gradually exhaustion overtook him. His eyes grew heavy, his thoughts slowed. Just before he drifted off, he heard a small voice. "Daddy." He opened his eyes. Emma stood in the doorway clutching her pillow. "What is it, sweetheart?" "I had a bad dream. Can I sleep with you?" Marcus lifted the covers. "Come here." Emma climbed into bed beside him, curling up against his chest. "Daddy." "Yes. Is the mean lady really gone?" "She's really gone. Forever." "Promise." "I promise." Emma was quiet for a moment. Then, "Daddy." "Yes, sweetheart. I'm glad you came back. I missed you so much." Tears streamed down Marcus's face as he held his daughter close. "I missed you too, baby. More than you'll ever know." "Daddy." "Yes. I love you." Marcus kissed the top of her head. "I love you too. Always and forever." Within minutes, Emma was asleep, her small hand clutching his shirt. Marcus watched her face peaceful and innocent and made a silent vow. He would never let anyone hurt her again. He would spend the rest of his life making up for the months she had suffered. He would be the father Catherine had always believed he could be. And somewhere out there in whatever heaven existed, he hoped Catherine was watching, hoped she could see that her children were safe, hoped she could forgive him for the mistakes he had made. "I kept my promise," he whispered into the darkness. "I protected them, just like you asked." The night was silent, but somehow Marcus felt an answer, a warmth that wrapped around him like an embrace, a peace that settled over him like a blessing, and a love that would never, ever die. At 12:47 a.m., Marcus finally slept. But across town in a maximum security holding cell, Victoria Sterling sat awake staring at the wall with empty eyes. She had lost everything, her freedom, her reputation, her future. But as she sat in that cold cell, a slow smile spread across her face. Because Victoria Sterling always had a backup plan. And this time, she would make sure Marcus Thornton paid the ultimate price. 3 weeks had passed since that terrible night at the rest stop. 3 weeks of healing, of therapy sessions, of slowly rebuilding what Victoria had destroyed. Marcus had rented a beautiful house on the coast, far from the mansion where his children had suffered. Emma was starting to smile again. Noah was speaking in full sentences. And Grace had become an irreplaceable part of their lives. But at 6:47 a.m. on a Tuesday morning, everything changed. Marcus's phone rang, shattering the peaceful silence. He grabbed it quickly, not wanting to wake the children. "Mr. Thornton." The voice was unfamiliar official. "Speaking." "This is Warden Phillips from the County Detention Facility. I'm calling to inform you that Victoria Sterling escaped custody approximately 2 hours ago." Marcus's blood turned to ice. "What?" "During a routine transfer to the courthouse, the transport vehicle was ambushed. 2 guards are in critical condition. Mrs. Sterling is missing." "How is that possible? She was supposed to be under maximum security." "She had help, Mr. Thornton. Professional help. We believe she's been planning this for weeks." Marcus was already moving, throwing on clothes, grabbing his keys. "Do you have any leads?" "We have every available unit searching. I wanted to warn you personally. Given the nature of her charges, we believe you and your children may be at risk." "I need protection, now." "Officers are already en route to your location. They should arrive within 20 minutes. Marcus ended the call and ran to the children's room. Emma and Noah were still asleep, peaceful and unaware of the danger closing in on them. Grace appeared in this doorway, her face pale. "I heard. What do we do?" "We leave. Now, wake the children." At 7:03 a.m., Marcus was speeding down the coastal highway. Grace beside him, the children strapped safely in the back seat. His phone rang again. David. "I just heard," David said urgently. "Where are you?" "Heading to my parents' house in Santa Barbara. It's the only place I can think of that she doesn't know about." "Good thinking. I'm coordinating with the police. They're setting up roadblocks on every major highway." "She won't use major highways. She's too smart for that." "Then what will she use?" Marcus thought for a moment. "Private airfields. She has connections in aviation. Check every small airport within 200 miles. "On it." David paused. "Marcus, there's something else. Her lawyer visited her yesterday. The guards reported they spoke for over an hour. So the lawyer hasn't been seen since. His car was found abandoned near the detention facility this morning." Marcus gripped the steering wheel tighter. "She's not just running, she's eliminating witnesses." "I'm afraid so." Emma's voice came from the back seat. "Daddy, where are we going?" Marcus forced his voice to stay calm. "On a little trip, sweetheart, to see Grandma and Grandpa." "Is the mean lady coming back?" Marcus glanced at Grace. She reached back and took Emma's hand. "No, honey," Grace said softly. "Your daddy is keeping you safe. That's all you need to know." At 8:22 a.m., they pulled into a gas station to refuel. Marcus kept the engine running while he pumped gas, his eyes scanning every car, every face, every shadow. Grace stepped out to take Noah to the restroom. As she walked past Marcus, she squeezed his arm. "We're going to be okay," she whispered. "I know." But he didn't know. He didn't know anything anymore, except that Victoria Sterling was out there somewhere and she wanted revenge. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Did you really think prison could hold me?" Marcus's heart stopped. He looked around frantically, searching for any sign of her. Another text. "I'm closer than you think." And then, "Look behind you." Marcus spun around. Nothing. Just the empty parking lot, the gas pumps, the highway beyond. His phone buzzed again. "Made you look." He stared at the screen, rage and fear battling inside him. A fourth text. "This is just the beginning, darling. I told you it wasn't over. Now you'll understand what it means to lose everything." Marcus called David immediately. "She's tracking my phone. She knows where I am." "Ditch it. Buy a burner at the next stop." "What about the children?" "Get them to Santa Barbara. I'll have a security team waiting." Grace emerged from the restroom carrying Noah. One look at Marcus's face told her everything. "She found us. She's playing games. Get in the car. Now." At 9:14 a.m., they were back on the road. Marcus's old phone smashed and discarded in a dumpster 20 miles back. He had purchased 2 burner phones, giving one to Grace with strict instructions. If anything happens to me, you take the children and run. Don't look back. Don't stop. Just run. Nothing is going to happen to you. Promise me, Grace. She looked into his eyes, saw the fear beneath the determination. I promise. Emma was watching the exchange with worried eyes. Daddy, you're scaring me. Marcus reached back and touched her cheek. I'm sorry, sweetheart. Everything is going to be fine. I just need you to be brave for a little while longer. Can you do that? Emma nodded slowly. Like at the rest stop. Just like at the rest stop. Okay, Daddy, I can be brave. At 10:31 a.m., they arrived at Marcus's parents' house. Harold and Margaret Thornton were waiting on the porch, their faces etched with worry. Thank God you're safe, Margaret said, pulling Emma into her arms. We've been watching the news all morning. Harold shook Marcus's hand firmly. The security team arrived 20 minutes ago. 4 men, all ex-military. They're patrolling the property now. Good. Nobody in or out without my approval. Margaret looked at Grace, curiosity mixing with concern. And who is this Grace Miller? She's been helping with the children. Helping? Margaret's eyebrow raised slightly. It's a long story, Mom. I'll explain later. Harold led them inside, where 3 armed guards waited. One of them stepped forward. Mr. Thornton, I'm Captain Reynolds. My team is fully briefed on the situation. We've secured all entry points and established a perimeter. No one is getting through without us knowing. What about aerial surveillance? Drone coverage on a rotating basis. We'll see anyone approaching from any direction. Marcus nodded, some of the tension leaving his shoulders. Good. Let's keep it that way. At 11:47 a.m., Marcus received a call from Detective Mitchell. We found Victoria's lawyer, dead, single gunshot wound to the head. Marcus closed his eyes. She's cleaning house. There's more. We traced her phone to a location about 50 miles from your current position. She's been there for the past 2 hours. 50 miles. That's too close. We have units converging on the location now. But Marcus, there's something strange. The signal hasn't moved at all. It's possible she ditched the phone and we're walking into a trap. Or she wants you to think it's a trap, so you hesitate while she moves somewhere else. Mitchell was quiet for a moment. You know her better than we do. What do you think she's planning? Marcus thought about Victoria. Her cunning, her patience, her absolute refusal to lose. She's not coming for me, he said slowly. Not directly. That would be too easy, too predictable. Then what? She's going to try to destroy me from the inside, turn people against me, make me look like the villain. How? Before Marcus could answer, his burner phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Check the news, darling. Marcus turned on the television. Every channel was showing the same thing. A press conference. Victoria Sterling standing before a crowd of reporters, tears streaming down her perfectly made-up face. I escaped because I had no choice, she was saying. Marcus Thornton is a dangerous man. He abused me throughout our marriage. He threatened to kill me if I ever spoke the truth. And when I tried to protect his children from his violence, he had me arrested on false charges. Marcus felt the blood drain from his face. She's lying. Every word is a lie. The evidence she presented in court was fabricated, Victoria continued. The recordings were doctored. The witnesses were paid. Marcus Thornton used his billions to construct an elaborate frame-up, and I was the victim. Reporters shouted questions. Mrs. Sterling, where are you now? I'm in a safe location surrounded by people who believe me, people who know the truth about Marcus Thornton. She looked directly into the camera. Marcus, if you're watching, I want you to know something. I'm not afraid of you anymore, and I'm going to make sure the whole world sees you for what you really are. The broadcast cut to a news anchor. That was Victoria Sterling speaking from an undisclosed location. Mrs. Sterling escaped police custody earlier today during a transport ambush that left 2 officers critically injured. She is considered armed and dangerous, and authorities are urging anyone with information to come forward immediately. Marcus stared at the screen, stunned. She's turning this into a media circus, Grace said quietly, making herself the victim. And me the monster. Marcus grabbed his phone and called David. Did you see that? Everyone saw it. The story is everywhere. We need to respond. We need to tell the truth. Not yet. Anything you say right now will look like defensive panic. We need to wait until the police catch her, then present our evidence in a controlled environment. And in the meantime, she's out there poisoning the public against me. She's also digging her own grave. Every lie she tells is another count of obstruction. When the truth comes out, and it will come out, she'll have no credibility left. Marcus wasn't convinced. What about the children? What if someone believes her? What if CPS comes knocking again? I've already filed emergency motions to prevent any custody interference. The judge has seen your evidence. He knows the truth. The judge knows, but does the public know? David was silent for a moment. No, and that's a problem. At 1:23 p.m., things got worse. A news van pulled up to the gate of Marcus's parents' property, then another. Within an hour, there were 6 vans, a dozen reporters, and a growing crowd of curious onlookers. Captain Reynolds approached Marcus. We can clear them out, but it'll cause a scene. Might be better to let them stay and ignore them. They're not here for a story. They're here because Victoria tipped them off. How do you know? Marcus pointed to the television. Another press conference was underway. This time, Victoria had a document in her hand. I have here the address where Marcus Thornton is currently hiding with his children. If anyone in law enforcement is watching, I beg you, please go there. Please rescue those babies before it's too late. The reporter asked, Mrs. Sterling, aren't you afraid of being arrested if you reveal your location? Victoria smiled sadly. I would gladly go back to prison if it meant saving those children. They are all that matters to me. Marcus threw the remote across the room. She's leading them right to us. She wants to create chaos. Grace picked up Emma, who had started crying at the noise. We need to get them out of here. And go where she's tracking our every move. She has eyes everywhere. Captain Reynolds stepped forward. I have a suggestion, sir. My team has a safe house about 3 hours north, completely off the grid. No paper trail, no electronic surveillance. Even I don't know the exact location until we're en route. Marcus hesitated. How do I know I can trust you? Because I have 2 daughters of my own, sir. And if anyone ever threatened them the way this woman is threatening yours, I would burn the world down to keep them safe. Marcus looked into the man's eyes and saw the truth there. Okay, we leave in 15 minutes. At 2:07 p.m., they slipped out through a back exit while the reporters crowded the front gate. 2 vehicles, unmarked, tinted windows. Marcus Grace and the children in one, 3 guards in the other. They drove for hours, switching highways multiple times, backtracking, taking detours that made no logical sense. Captain Reynolds was thorough, paranoid, perfect. At 5:34 p.m., they arrived at the safe house. It was a small cabin in the mountains, completely isolated, accessible only by a single dirt road. Welcome to nowhere, Reynolds said grimly. No neighbors for 20 miles, no cell service, no internet. Nobody knows this place exists. Marcus carried a sleeping Noah inside. How long can we stay here? As long as necessary. We have supplies for 2 weeks. After that, we'll need a resupply run. Grace settled Emma on a small bed in the corner. The girl was exhausted, pale, but still trying to be brave. Daddy, is this where we live now? Just for a little while, sweetheart. I don't like it. It's too quiet. Quiet is good. Quiet means safe. Emma looked at him with eyes too old for her age. Is she going to find us here? Marcus knelt beside her. No, baby. No one is going to find us here. But even as he said the words, he wasn't sure he believed them. At 7:12 p.m., Captain Reynolds received a coded message on his satellite phone. News from the mainland, he reported. Victoria Sterling was spotted at a private airfield in Nevada. She boarded a small plane about an hour ago, destination unknown. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. She's not running. She's planning something. Any idea what? Victoria doesn't do anything without a reason. If she's getting on a plane, she has a specific destination in mind, a specific target. Grace looked up from where she was preparing dinner. What about your company, your offices? Marcus's eyes widened. My employees. She could be going after my employees. He grabbed the satellite phone and dialed David's number. David, listen carefully. Victoria may be heading to the office. You need to get everyone out. Already done. When the news broke this morning, I sent everyone home. The building is locked down. What about my penthouse, the apartment in New York? Security at both locations has been tripled. Marcus exhaled slowly. Okay. What about you? Are you safe? A long pause. I'm fine, Marcus. David, you're my best friend and my lawyer. If Victoria wants to hurt me, you're the obvious target. I know. That's why I'm calling from an undisclosed location with 4 bodyguards. Good. Stay there. At 8:45 p.m., Marcus sat on the cabin's small porch staring at the stars. Grace joined him, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders. The children are asleep, she said softly. Finally. Thank you for everything. You keep thanking me. It's not necessary. It is. You could have walked away a dozen times. Nobody would have blamed you. But you stayed. Grace was quiet for a moment. Can I tell you something I've never told anyone? Of course. When I was 12, my mother married a man who seemed perfect, charming, successful, kind. Everyone loved him. Her voice trembled. But behind closed doors, he was a monster. He hurt my mother. He hurt me. And nobody believed us because he was so good at pretending. Marcus reached for her hand. I'm sorry. I swore that if I ever saw another child going through what I went through, I would do something about it. I would never look away. I would never stay silent. She turned to face him. That's why I stayed. Not for you, for Emma and Noah. Because they deserve someone who will fight for them. And you're that someone. I'm trying to be. Marcus squeezed her hand. You are. More than you know. At 10:17 p.m., the satellite phone rang. Captain Reynolds answered, listened intently, then hung up without a word. His face was gray. What is it? Marcus demanded. Victoria's plane was tracked to an airfield in Northern California, about 60 miles from here. Marcus felt the world tilt beneath him. She knows where we are. Not necessarily. This could be a coincidence. There are no coincidences with Victoria. She knows. Reynolds immediately went into action, barking orders to his team. Defensive positions, night vision equipment, weapons checked and ready. Marcus went inside and woke the children. Emma opened her eyes and immediately understood. She's coming, isn't she? Maybe. We don't know for sure. But I need you to be brave again, okay? Emma nodded solemnly. I'll protect Noah. That's my girl. Grace gathered supplies while Marcus helped the children into their jackets. If they had to run, they would be ready. At 11:03 p.m., one of the guards reported movement on the northern perimeter. Single figure approaching on foot, can't get a clear visual. Reynolds grabbed his rifle. I'll investigate. Everyone else maintain positions. I'm coming with you, Marcus said. Sir, with respect, you should stay with your children. My children are safe with Grace, and if Victoria is out there, I want to look her in the eye. They moved through the darkness, guided only by moonlight and night vision goggles. The forest was eerily silent, every snapping twig a potential threat. Reynolds held up a fist. Stop. Ahead, barely visible through the trees, a figure stood motionless. Victoria Sterling, Reynolds shouted. Stay where you are. You're surrounded. The figure didn't move. Marcus stepped forward. Victoria, I know that's you. It's over. There's nowhere left to run. Slowly the figure turned. But it wasn't Victoria. It was a man. Tall, lean, with cold eyes that reflected the moonlight like a predator. Mr. Thornton, the man said calmly. Mrs. Sterling sends her regards. Reynolds raised his rifle. Hands where I can see them. The man smiled. That won't be necessary. A gunshot echoed through the forest. Reynolds went down. Marcus dove behind a tree as more shots rang out. He could hear shouting, screaming, the chaos of an ambush. Grace! He screamed into the darkness. Get the children out! Now! But there was no response, only silence, and then footsteps approaching from behind. Hello, darling, Victoria's voice cold and triumphant. Marcus turned slowly. She stood there, a gun in her hand, her smile as beautiful and deadly as ever. "Did you really think you could hide from me?" she asked. "I found you in your own garden. Remember, I've been watching you since the day we met." "Victoria, please. The children are fine. For now." She stepped closer. "But that depends entirely on what you do next." "What do you want?" "What I've always wanted. Everything." Her eyes gleamed in the moonlight. "Your money, your company, your children, everything that was supposed to be mine." "I'll give you whatever you want. Just don't hurt them." Victoria laughed. "Such a devoted father. It's almost touching." She raised the gun. "But I'm afraid it's too late for negotiations, Marcus. You humiliated me. You destroyed my reputation. You took everything from me. You destroyed yourself. I just exposed the truth." "The truth," Victoria's voice turned vicious. "The truth is that I loved you. I gave you everything, and you chose those brats over me." "They're children, Victoria. Innocent children. They're obstacles. They always were. Catherine's little reminders constantly undermining my authority, making me feel like a stranger in my own home." "It was never your home." Victoria's finger tightened on the trigger. "No. But it will be. After tonight, there won't be anyone left to challenge me. I'll be the grieving widow, the traumatized stepmother, the victim who finally got justice." Marcus closed his eyes, preparing for the end, but the shot never came. Instead, he heard a familiar voice. "Drop the gun, Victoria." Grace stepped out of the shadows, one of the fallen guard's rifles in her hands. Victoria spun around. "You, the little maid. How touching." "I said drop it." "Or what, you'll shoot me?" Victoria laughed. "You don't have the nerve." Grace's hands were steady. "You hurt those children. You terrorized them for months. You made them afraid to be in their own home." Her voice hardened. "I have plenty of nerve." Victoria's eyes flickered between Grace and Marcus, calculating her options. "Fine," she said finally. "You win. I'll drop the gun." She lowered her arms slowly. Then in one fluid motion, she swung the weapon toward Grace. But Grace was faster. The shot echoed through the forest. Victoria Sterling crumpled to the ground, the gun falling from her lifeless fingers. For a long moment, no one moved. Then Marcus rushed to Grace's side. "Are you okay?" Grace was trembling, tears streaming down her face. "I killed her. I actually killed her." "You saved our lives. You saved the children." I've never killed anyone before." Marcus took the rifle from her shaking hands and pulled her into his arms. "It's over. It's finally over." In the distance, sirens wailed. At 11:47 p.m., the forest was swarming with police, paramedics, and federal agents. Captain Reynolds was being loaded into an ambulance, seriously wounded, but alive. Victoria's accomplice had been captured trying to flee through the woods, and Victoria Sterling lay beneath a white sheet, her reign of terror finally ended. Detective Mitchell approached Marcus. "We'll need statements from everyone, but from what I can see, this was clearly self-defense." "Grace saved my life. She saved all of us." Mitchell nodded. "She'll be treated as a hero. I'll make sure of that." Marcus looked toward the cabin where Emma and Noah waited. They were safe. They were alive. They would grow up without the shadow of Victoria hanging over them. He walked back to them, knelt down, and pulled them both into his arms. "It's over," he whispered. "The mean lady is never coming back." Emma looked up at him with tear-filled eyes. "Never. Never, sweetheart. I promise." And this time, it was a promise he could keep. 6 months had passed since that terrible night in the forest. 6 months of healing, of therapy, of slowly learning to live again. The nightmares still came sometimes, but they were fading now, replaced by dreams of sunshine and laughter and a future that no longer seemed impossible. At 7:23 a.m. on a warm Saturday morning, Marcus stood in the kitchen of their new home, watching Emma help Noah eat his breakfast. The house was different from the mansion where Victoria had terrorized them. Smaller, simpler, filled with light and love instead of fear and shadows. Daddy Noah got oatmeal in his hair again, Emma announced. Marcus laughed and grabbed a towel. That's because someone is teaching him bad habits. It wasn't me. He did it himself. Sure he did. Grace entered the kitchen still in her robe, her hair tousled from sleep. She kissed Marcus on the cheek and ruffled Noah's sticky hair. "Good morning, disaster zone." "Gace!" Noah shouted, reaching for her with oatmeal-covered hands. Grace scooped him up, ignoring the mess. "Good morning, little monster. Are you giving your daddy trouble?" "Always," Marcus said with a smile. The transformation in his children still amazed him. Emma, who had once flinched at every raised hand, now ran through the house with abandon, laughing and shouting like any normal 7-year-old. Noah, who had barely spoken under Victoria's reign, now chattered constantly, his vocabulary growing by the day. They were healing. They were all healing. But the scars remained. They would always remain. At 9:15 a.m., the doorbell rang. Marcus opened it to find David Chen standing on the porch, a thick folder tucked under his arm. "We need to talk," David said grimly. Marcus felt his stomach tighten. "The children are here." "I know. This can't wait." They moved to Marcus's home office, closing the door behind them. David set the folder on the desk and opened it. "Victoria's estate has been settled. As her legal husband at the time of her death, you inherit everything." Marcus stared at him. "I don't want anything of hers." "It's not that simple. Her assets include properties, investments, and a substantial amount of cash, but there's also debt, significant debt." "How significant?" "About $4 million. Most of it was used to finance her escape and the mercenaries she hired." Marcus sat down heavily. "So even in death, she's still causing problems." "There's more." David pulled out another document. During the investigation into her escape, authorities discovered something disturbing. Victoria had been planning this for months, long before you ever suspected anything. Planning what exactly? On everything. The abuse was designed to traumatize the children, make them dependent on her. The escape was planned from the moment she realized you were investigating her, and there was a third phase. Marcus felt cold. "What third phase?" If she had succeeded that night in the forest, she planned to take the children to South America. She had fake passports, made a new identity, established even a house purchased under an alias. "She was going to disappear with my children. Forever. You would never have found them." Marcus closed his eyes, fighting the wave of nausea that threatened to overwhelm him. Even now, even with Victoria dead and gone, her evil still reached out from the grave to haunt him. "There's one more thing," David said quietly. "The police found a letter in her possessions. It was addressed to you to be delivered after her plan succeeded." He handed Marcus an envelope. The handwriting was Victoria's elegant and precise. Marcus's hands trembled as he opened it. "My dearest Marcus," the letter began, "if you're reading this, it means I've won. Your precious children are with me now somewhere you'll never find them. They'll grow up calling me mother, forgetting your face, learning to fear your memory as I teach them what happens to those who oppose me. You thought you could defeat me. You thought your little gardener disguise was so clever. But I knew, I always knew. From the moment you stepped onto the property, I recognized you. The way you moved, the way you watched the children, the way you looked at me when you thought I wasn't watching. I played along because I wanted to see how far you would go. I wanted to gather evidence of my own proof that you were unstable, obsessive, dangerous, and now that evidence will help me raise your children in a new country far from your influence. Goodbye, Marcus. Remember me fondly. Victoria." Marcus set the letter down, his hands shaking uncontrollably. "She knew," he whispered. "The whole time she knew it was me." David nodded. "The police believe she used that knowledge to set multiple traps. The bodyguard at the rest stop, the media ambush, the attack in the forest. She was always one step ahead. Until she wasn't. Until Grace stopped her." Marcus looked toward the door, thinking of the woman in the kitchen, the woman who had saved his life and his children's lives, the woman who had killed for them without hesitation. "How is she doing?" David asked. "Really? The nightmares are getting better. The therapy is helping, but she still flinches sometimes when she hears a loud noise. She still checks the locks 3 times before bed." "Give it time. She'll heal." Will she? Will any of us? David was quiet for a moment. You know what I think? I think healing isn't about forgetting. It's about learning to carry the weight. And from what I've seen, you're all getting stronger every day. At 11:47 a.m., Marcus found Grace sitting alone on the back porch, staring at nothing. He sat beside her without speaking. David told me about the letter, she said quietly, about how she knew all along. I should have been more careful. You were careful. She was just evil, truly evil. Grace turned to face him. Marcus, there's something I need to tell you. What is it? I've been offered a job, a good one, director of a nonprofit that helps abused children. Marcus felt his heart constrict. That's wonderful. You'd be perfect for it. It's in New York. The words hung in the air between them. New York, 3,000 miles away, a lifetime away. I see, Marcus said slowly. I haven't accepted yet. I wanted to talk to you first. Grace, you don't need my permission to live your life. That's not what I'm asking for. She took his hand. I'm asking if you want me to stay. Marcus looked at her, really looked at her for the first time in weeks. The woman who had stood between Victoria and his children. The woman who had shot a killer to save him. The woman who had held his daughter while she cried and made his son laugh when nothing else could. I want you to stay, he said, more than I've ever wanted anything. Even after everything, even knowing what I did, because of everything, because of what you did. He squeezed her hand. Grace, you're not just someone who saved my children. You're part of this family now. You're part of us. Tears welled in Grace's eyes. I love them, Emma and Noah. I love them like they're my own. They love you too. They ask about you constantly. When's Grace coming? Where's Grace? Can Grace read us a story? Grace laughed through her tears. Noah still can't say my name right. Gace is close enough. They sat in silence for a moment, hands intertwined. What about us? Grace asked softly. What are we? Marcus turned to face her. What do you want us to be? I don't know. I've never been good at relationships. I always pick the wrong people, trust the wrong instincts. Your instincts saved my life. That was different. That was protecting the children. Was it? Marcus reached up and touched her face. Grace, from the first moment I saw you, I knew there was something special about you. The way you treated Emma and Noah, the way you stood up to Victoria, the way you risked everything for a family that wasn't even yours. But I killed someone. How can you look at me the same way after that? I look at you exactly the same way, as the bravest, most selfless person I've ever known. Grace's tears fell freely now. I don't feel brave. I feel broken. Then we'll be broken together, and we'll heal together. He leaned forward and kissed her gentle and tender, a promise of things to come. When they pulled apart, Grace was smiling through her tears. Does this mean you're officially asking me to stay? I'm officially asking you to never leave. At 2:34 p.m., Marcus gathered everyone in the living room for a family meeting. Emma sat cross-legged on the floor, Noah in her lap. Grace stood beside Marcus, their fingers intertwined. I have something important to tell you both, Marcus began. Emma's eyes went wide. Are we moving again? No, sweetheart. We're staying right here. Is the mean lady coming back? Marcus knelt down to her level. The mean lady is never coming back. Ever. That's a promise. Then what is it? Marcus looked at Grace, who nodded encouragingly. How would you feel if Grace stayed with us, not as a helper or a nanny, but as part of our family? Emma's face lit up. Really? Forever? Forever? Emma jumped up and threw her arms around Grace. Yes, 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 yes. Noah, not understanding but wanting to be included, toddled over and grabbed Grace's leg. Gace, stay! Grace laughed and scooped him up. Yes, baby. Grace is staying. Marcus watched his family, his new family, embrace each other. Emma was crying happy tears. Noah was babbling excitedly. Grace was glowing with joy. For the first time since Catherine's death, Marcus felt complete. At 4:17 p.m., they drove to the cemetery where Catherine was buried. Marcus had been dreading this visit for weeks, but he knew it was necessary. He needed to tell her. He needed her blessing. Emma held his hand as they walked to the grave. Noah was in Grace's arms, unusually quiet, as if he sensed the solemnity of the moment. Marcus knelt before the headstone and traced Catherine's name with his finger. "Hey, Kath, it's been a while." Emma knelt beside him. "Hi, Mommy. I miss you." Marcus put his arm around his daughter. "I have a lot to tell you. Things have been complicated, but we're okay now. The kids are okay." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "I made some mistakes, Kath. Big ones. I married someone who hurt our children, and I didn't see it until it was almost too late. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Emma leaned against him. "Daddy, it wasn't your fault. The mean lady tricked you." "Maybe, but I should have seen it sooner." Grace stood a few feet away, giving them space, but Marcus waved her over. "Kath, I want you to meet someone. Her name is Grace. She saved our children. She saved me." He took a deep breath. "I think I'm falling in love with her." The words hung in the air, spoken aloud for the first time. "I know it's soon. I know you've only been gone 2 years, but life doesn't wait for us to be ready." Marcus's voice cracked. "I will always love you, Catherine. You were my first love, my best friend, the mother of my children. But you're gone, and I'm still here, and I have to keep living. I have to keep loving." Grace knelt beside him, tears in her eyes. "Mrs. Thornton, I promise to take care of them. I promise to love them with everything I have. I'll never try to replace you, but I'll do everything in my power to make sure your children grow up happy and safe." Emma looked between the grave and Grace. "Mommy, I think you'd like Grace. She's really nice. She makes good pancakes. And she does funny voices when she reads stories." Noah squirmed in Grace's arms. "Mama!" Everyone froze. Noah had never called anyone Mama before, not since Catherine died. Grace's eyes went wide. "Noah, honey, I'm not." But Noah just smiled and patted her face. "Mama." Emma looked at Grace, then at the grave, then back at Grace. "Is that okay, Mommy? Can Grace be our mama too?" The wind rustled through the trees, gentle and warm. Marcus felt tears streaming down his face. "I think that's a yes." At 6:23 p.m. they returned home. The visit to the cemetery had been emotional, but cathartic. Something had shifted, something had healed. As Grace prepared dinner, Marcus found Emma sitting alone in her room looking at a photograph. "What's that, sweetheart?" Emma held up the picture. It was a family photo from years ago before Catherine got sick. Marcus, Catherine, Emma as a baby. "I don't want to forget her daddy." Marcus sat beside her. "You won't." "But I'm already forgetting. I can't remember what her voice sounded like. I can't remember how she smelled." "That's okay. That happens to everyone." "No, it's not okay." Emma's voice trembled. "She was my mommy. I should remember everything." Marcus pulled her close. "Let me tell you something about your mother. She had the most beautiful laugh. When she thought something was really funny, she would snort, and then she'd get embarrassed, and then she'd laugh even harder." Emma giggled. "Really? Really? And she loved to dance. In the kitchen while she was cooking. She would put on music and spin around, and sometimes she would grab me and make me dance with her. I kind of remember that. She also talked to her plants. She believed they could hear her, and she would tell them about her day, about you, about all the things she was grateful for." Emma smiled. "That's silly." "Maybe, but it made her happy." Marcus kissed the top of her head. "Your mother is not gone, Emma. She lives on in you, in Noah, in all the love she left behind. You don't need to remember every detail. You just need to remember that she loved you. She loved me. More than anything in the world." Emma was quiet for a moment. "Daddy." "Yes. I think Mommy would be happy about Grace." "You think so?" "Yeah, because Grace makes you smile, and Grace makes us happy, and Mommy always said she wanted us to be happy." Marcus hugged his daughter tight. "Your mother was a very wise woman." "I know. She was the best." At 8:47 p.m., After the children were asleep, Marcus and Grace sat on the porch watching the stars. "This has been quite a day," Grace said softly. "Quite a 6 months. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you hadn't disguised yourself as a gardener?" Marcus considered the question. "I think about it sometimes. If I had just confronted Victoria directly, if I had trusted my instincts sooner, you might never have found the evidence you needed. Or I might have saved my children sooner." Grace took his hand. "You can't change the past, Marcus. You can only learn from it." "What have you learned?" She thought for a moment. That love is stronger than fear, that family isn't just about blood, that sometimes the people who save us are the ones we least expect. That's very profound. "I had a good teacher." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "Marcus." "Yes. Thank you." "For what?" "For seeing me, not as a maid or a helper or a savior, just as me." Marcus kissed the top of her head. "You're the easiest person in the world to see, Grace. You shine too bright to miss." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars wheel overhead. At 10:15 p.m., Marcus's phone buzzed, a text from David. "Thought you should know. The final investigation into Victoria's network is complete. All her accomplices are in custody. It's really over." Marcus read the message twice, then showed it to Grace. "It's really over," she echoed. "How does that feel?" Grace was quiet for a long moment. "Like I can finally breathe." Marcus understood. For months there had always been the lingering fear that Victoria had left something behind, some final trap waiting to spring. But now, finally, it was done. "What do we do now?" Grace asked. "Now we live, we heal, we love. We do all the things Victoria tried to take from us." "That sounds nice." "It does, doesn't it?" At 11:34 p.m., as they prepared for bed, Emma appeared in the doorway, rubbing her eyes. "Daddy, I had a dream." Marcus knelt down to her level. "A bad dream?" "No, a good one." She smiled sleepily. "Mommy was in it. She told me she was happy. She told me we're all going to be okay." Marcus felt tears prick his eyes. "What else did she say?" "She said to tell you she loves you, and she said to tell Grace thank you." Grace covered her mouth, overcome with emotion. Emma yawned. "Can I sleep in your room tonight? I don't want the dream to end." "Of course, sweetheart. Of course you can." They settled into bed, Emma curled between them, Noah's baby monitor crackling softly on the nightstand. Grace reached across and took Marcus's hand. "This is what it feels like," she whispered. "What family?" Marcus squeezed her hand. "Welcome home, Grace." At 7:00 a.m. the next morning, 1 year later, Marcus stood at the altar of a small chapel, David at his side as best man. The pews were filled with friends, family, colleagues, all gathered to witness a new beginning. Emma walked down the aisle first, scattering flower petals with the serious concentration of a child on an important mission. Noah followed, carried by Margaret, who was beaming with joy. And then Grace appeared. She wore a simple white dress, elegant and understated, exactly like her. Her hair was loose around her shoulders, and her smile was the most beautiful thing Marcus had ever seen. As she walked toward him, Marcus thought about everything they had been through. The deception, the fear, the violence, the loss, the long nights of healing, and the slow dawning of hope. He thought about Catherine watching from somewhere beyond, giving her blessing. He thought about his children who had suffered so much and emerged stronger than anyone had a right to expect. And he thought about Grace, the unexpected angel who had walked into his life disguised as a maid and ended up saving everything he held dear. She reached the altar and took his hands. "You look beautiful," he whispered. "You clean up pretty well yourself, Mr. Gardner." He laughed, the sound echoing through the chapel. The minister began the ceremony, but Marcus barely heard the words. He was lost in Grace's eyes and the promise of the future they would build together. When it came time for the vows, he spoke from the heart. "Grace, you came into my life during its darkest hour. You saw children suffering and refused to look away. You saw a man broken by grief and deception and chose to stand beside him anyway. You saved my daughter's life. You saved my son's innocence. You saved me from myself. I don't have the words to express what you mean to me, to us, but I can promise you this: for every day I have left, I will spend it trying to be worthy of the love you've given us." Grace's tears fell freely as she spoke her own vows. "Marcus, when I first met you, you were a stranger in worn clothes, pretending to be someone you weren't. But even then I saw the truth in your eyes. I saw a father who would do anything for his children. I saw a man whose heart was breaking with every moment he couldn't help them. I saw someone worth believing in. You taught me that family isn't about blood or marriage certificates. It's about choosing each other every day, no matter what. I choose you, Marcus. I choose Emma and Noah. I choose this life, this love, this beautiful mess, today and always." The minister pronounced them husband and wife. Marcus kissed Grace as the chapel erupted in applause. Emma ran up and threw her arms around them both. "Does this mean I can call you Mom now?" Grace knelt down, tears streaming down her face. "You can call me whatever you want, sweetheart. I want to call you Mom." "Then Mom it is." Noah toddled over and joined the embrace. "Mama Dada." Marcus looked at his family whole and complete at last. "Let's go home," he said. At 4:30 p.m., the reception was winding down. Emma had fallen asleep on a chair, exhausted from dancing. Noah was curled in Margaret's lap, thumb in his mouth. Grace and Marcus stood alone on the dance floor, swaying slowly to the music. "Happy?" Marcus asked. "Happier than I ever thought possible. No regrets? Only one?" She looked up at him. "I wish I had found you sooner, before Victoria, before all the pain. If you had found me sooner, we wouldn't be who we are now. We wouldn't have this story." "That's very philosophical." "I've had a lot of time to think." Grace laughed and rested her head on his shoulder. "What happens now? Now we live happily ever after. Is that realistic? No, but we can try." They danced in silence for a moment. "Marcus, yes, thank you for not giving up. On your children, on yourself, on us." Marcus held her close. "Thank you for giving me something worth fighting for." As the sun set on their wedding day, Marcus thought about all the journeys that had led to this moment. The grief of losing Catherine, the blindness that had allowed Victoria into their lives, the desperate gamble of disguising himself as a gardener, the terror of almost losing his children, the miracle of finding Grace. Every step had been necessary, every pain had been purposeful, and now, standing on the dance floor with his new wife watching his children sleep peacefully nearby, Marcus understood something that had eluded him for years. Love wasn't about avoiding pain, it was about finding people worth enduring it for. At 8:15 p.m., they returned home as a family. Grace carried Noah to his bed while Marcus lifted Emma gently and placed her under the covers. "Daddy," Emma murmured sleepily. "Yes, sweetheart. This is the best day ever. It really is. I love you, Daddy." "I love you too, baby, more than all the stars in the sky." He kissed her forehead and stepped back, watching her drift into peaceful sleep. In the hallway, Grace was waiting. She took his hand and led him to the window, where the stars were just beginning to appear. "Look at that," she whispered, "a whole universe of possibilities." "I only need one possibility," Marcus replied. "This one, right here, with you." Grace smiled and leaned into him. "The billionaire and the maid. Who would have thought? The gardener and the maid, you mean?" She laughed. "Even better." They stood together in the quiet night, two people who had found each other against impossible odds, who had walked through fire and emerged stronger, who had built a family from the ashes of tragedy. Outside, the world continued its endless turning. Somewhere other families faced their own trials, their own monsters, their own impossible choices. But in this house, in this moment, there was only peace. Marcus thought about the journey that had brought them here, the disguise he had worn, the horrors he had witnessed, the woman who had tried to destroy everything he loved, the unexpected hero who had saved them all. It hadn't been easy, it hadn't been fair, but it had been worth it. Every single moment had been worth it. Grace squeezed his hand. What are you thinking about the future? What do you see? Marcus looked at her, at the woman who had become his partner, his protector, his wife. He thought about Emma and Noah sleeping safely down the hall. He thought about the family they would continue to build, the memories they would create, the love that would carry them through whatever came next. "I see everything," he said. "I see everything I ever wanted." And as the stars shone down on their little house, as his children dreamed peaceful dreams, and his wife smiled in the darkness, Marcus Thornton finally understood what it meant to be truly happy. Not the happiness of wealth or power or success, the happiness of family, the happiness of love, the happiness of knowing that no matter what storms may come, they would face them together. For Marcus had learned the most important lesson of all, that the deepest wounds can become the source of the greatest strength, that the darkest nights give way to the brightest dawns, and that sometimes the people who save us are the ones we least expect. He had gone undercover as a gardener to protect his children. He had found a maid who became his salvation. And together, they had built something beautiful from the ruins of something terrible. Because in the end, love always wins. Always.